All right. Thank you, everyone, for spending time on your probably lunch hour with me. This talk is recorded, so you will be able to watch it later as well if you need to go. And just to start off, the talk is about accessibility maintenance and what happens after the project. A huge subject that I have to boil down into 30 minutes, so might not be able to cover all of your expectations, but I will be available for questions afterwards as well. So please do ask questions in the chat. My name is Erik Gustafsson Spagnoli, and I'm an Ali Grinch or accessibility specialist at Axess Lab. You can contact me at erik@axesslab.com for follow-up questions or connect on LinkedIn through a11y.se. So what's the plan for today? We're going to go through a bit of the definition of project and maintenance, so we have a kind of common understanding of what I mean by it. I'm going to go through some problems with short-term accessibility and some of the solutions for long-term accessibility, and then wrap it up with some final words. So let's kick it off with definition of project and maintenance. And what we see in project form for accessibility is that it often has a set budget, so you know how much money you can spend. You often have a defined scope, and you have a time constraint, so you know there's a deadline ahead. And usually you have support from experts, either internal or external experts, as from Axess Lab. And some examples to be more concrete is everyone has seen the get ready for the deadline for the European Accessibility Act that has been up until this summer. But it can also be launching a new website, doing an app release for a new app, or simply just making an audit of an app website or physical accessibility. And then we go into maintenance. And this is the case that we have seen with many companies. There's a small budget or no budget at all. There's no time allocated for the tasks. We have no expert support. And the team that worked with the app or the website or whatever project it is has probably just stopped working with this functionality and moved on to something else. And we have a graveyard of development, which we see in maintenance tasks. So let's get into the problem then of short-term accessibility. Well, this is how it usually looks like. You start with an audit, you're fixing shit, you do an audit, you're fixing shit, and you still have to do all of the other development at the same time. So accessibility often ends up in a long list of priorities and to-dos in your ticketing system, and a sad face of the accessibility experts and team. I'm going to show you some examples where it has been quite obvious that this is what is happening. There's no real focus on accessibility. And just a warning, this is the warning examples, the horrible examples. So there's going to be a lot of movement and flashing in this video. And the video is from jollyroom.se. And there's no sound, so don't be bothered by missing sound. But if you have problems with movement, you should probably look away now. If I can play it. So there's a lot going on here. There's a huge video just switching all the time, moving, moments. And in the top, go back, you have a kind of banner that stretches all across the site that just moves and flickers. And they're kind of honest on Jolly Room. They're saying overload, Friday overload. So yeah, I would probably leave this site straight away. And this is a case of when marketing wants to do something fun and it just goes straight out to production. Another example from Air Baltic, and this is also Black Friday, where it is a auto-playing video that just repeats and repeats and repeats. And you also have a timer that count down the seconds and minutes and the day until the offer expires. So there's a lot of things happening at the same time here. And stress. They want you to buy something straight away, not dark patterns at all. Another example that we've seen, and I had a huge amount of examples, but as we have just so little time for this, I have just selected a few of them. And one example is that they push out this content on a website that usually has quite good alt text, but they just write an alt text Black Week. And it has an offer with up to 70%, and yeah, see our deals now. It's not conveyed to a screen reader user at all. And we also saw a lot of different examples where there are repeated on the categories. There's repeating information. So people put in an alt text where there shouldn't be an alt text because there might be an area label or something like that instead. And this one is, I mean, it's almost one in contrast on this background from Power. So I measured the different parts of the image that has text in it. And at one eye drop from this image had 1.06 to 1 in contrast ratio. So 1 is no contrast. And this is almost at that. I think it's probably one of the worst ones I've seen. And this is also something that marketing pushes out without the control of people that might be able to stop this. And this one is the winner of the fails that I collected. And it is on New Yorker. And this is also a motion warning. I have to stop it before I continue. There's a lot of movement going on here, so look away if you have problems with movement. And in this video, there is a kind of liquid thingy going on, showing Black Week in the background, just a lot of movement. They also do not, I mean, this is on a narrower window, and their main point with Black Week is not showing. It's outside of the window. So they're failing the reflow as well. And the Text on the subscribe to the newsletter part is just so low in contrast. It's almost close to that one as well. And it's also on the subscribe button, a very low contrast, gray on gray, which is horrible because they want people to actually subscribe. And they probably don't want people to read the fine details, which is okay. I'll continue playing this one. And there's a banner moving with pink and green colors with the animation in the video. And there's auto-playing videos going on. And you can see that the menu and logo and the complementary menu on the right-hand side switch its colors, but it doesn't work on a darker background. So they have had some thought into it. And then the menu disappears and the logo disappears because it's a white background and it's nowhere to be seen again. And to bits sum up what happens in the short-term accessibility is that people come and people go in companies. Or as a quote from my dear colleague Max, random people breaking things. Also, there's a problem that there's no budget left for accessibility after the big EAA project. And then monitoring agencies start contacting because they start monitoring, and there's panic mode at the different companies. And when everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. So there's no one actually taking care of accessibility in the big picture. So cue the solution and long-term accessibility thoughts. As I see it, you do need different roles in a larger organization. Everyone needs to have responsibility for accessibility in the different departments. So starting off with the board. Well, they decide how much budget each part of the company is going to have. They're also the ones that are legally responsible for the European Accessibility Act. So they need to have someone that is appointed for accessibility responsibility as well. And then, of course, we have development. And this is usually the part where accessibility lies. But the PO needs to have their responsibility. You need to set the correct demands. You need to have the QA on board and the UX and the dev. Usually UX and dev are the ones that actually care about accessibility. You need legal to be on board because they know about the laws and they can support the organization. And they are also the ones that gonna handle the compliance and reporting. And they know what to prioritize if it's something in the scope of the law or not. We also have HR, human resources. They need to have recruitment with accessibility in mind. So it has to be in the job ads and they have to be open for employing people with disabilities. So they also have to support that kind of things. And before recruitment, you need to have a job ad out. And we don't see accessibility in those ads. So schools don't really have it in the programs because they look at what are the demands from the employers. So HR has a very large role into shaping accessibility into the future. And I remember Martin Lexelius talking about this, that yeah, the schools don't look into educations with accessibility because the companies do not actually demand it. In HR, they also have control of education, so they can make sure that people that are employed educate themselves in accessibility. And then you have customer service. They need to be in control of the help channels, email, chat, telephone, in store, whatever. They need to understand people with disabilities. And if someone says, okay, call, but you cannot hear, that becomes a problem. Economy needs to be on board because you have procurement as an example. They need to procure accessible solutions. And it could be something, a third-party tool that they use, such as chats that some companies just buy and they don't work for screen readers and other things as well. And marketing. Yeah, we saw the examples that marketing probably pushed out. And we have different advertisements. We have in-store advertisement, we have on buses, we have on TV, and different websites. So they need to make accessible advertisements as well. And they also often have control of the physical location. So if you have stores or if you have machines placed somewhere, they need to have control of those as well. And some machines are in the scope of the EA, which makes it even more important. These are many, many roles now. And the point here is that it should not be on one person to control accessibility across the organization. But we need someone to actually lead them and make sure that something happens all the time. So you should have someone with at least, as we have seen it, a 50% role, preferably 100%, but we know that budgets do not allow it in all places. But someone needs to steer the ship, really. And things that are overlooked, campaigns, again, as I already shown, customer service, in-store and physical devices and signage. It's one thing with the in-store devices, but you also have a way to the device and clear signage. You have delivery methods. I mean, for e-commerce, yeah, it's not yet a part of the EA, but you want people to be able to use the delivery methods that you offer. You have email communication, and we have an increasing amount of artificial intelligence or AI usage across all companies. And it's chatbots and other tools that simply need to have accessibility thought of as well. And ads is important. So there's a way of actually doing this, and you can start a champions program. And the point, and this goes back to Gareth Ford Williams when he started the concept, gather people who care and make an organic growth out of it. So people who already care, it's not a lot of work to actually engage them and make them join. And I mentioned HR. They love a program that has learning objectives. So if you have different steps and levels, which says you have to learn something along the way, they're going to buy in straight away. And results of a champions program is that people actually talk about accessibility more. And team leaders are exposed to it. There's often a product owner or product manager that might not know as much as they should about accessibility, but they will be nudged if you have an accessibility program. And for the ones who care, they have a support system. It's very, very important that you have a place to go to and ask and answer questions, so you can share knowledge across teams. And it's also celebrated as something fun when you have an accessibility program, because you can have exciting meetings with different topics. You can invite guests and so on. And we have done this with companies, and we actually have a concept where you have 4 steps with different learning objectives and so on. So you can join in when you're just, as it says in Swedish, nyfiken. You're curious. There's not a lot of steps and demands in that level. But this is really successful and has been used in many organizations in different ways. So it's a bit of a gamification as well. And I've also heard that, okay, we can stop. We won, we're best, but like winning an award for great accessibility does not mean you should stop the efforts. It's important to continue working because teams change, the platforms change, the tools change. So accessibility is a long-term effort, and we need to get people to realize that. Right, I have some just short final words, and then we'll open up for some questions. We do have an accessibility learning platform called Axess Lab Academy, and we have some different courses there for web developers, designers, and introductions. And there are courses in English and Swedish, so please look into them if you want to learn more. And we also have a great offer for anyone listening in today. And it's a webinar offer, so it's not valid for a long time, but we have time banks 20% off at the moment. And you can talk to Sara or Tine, write to hello@axsesslab.com or call +46 101 99 4117. And you can, yeah, we can just have a introductory talk and see what your needs are. And as I said before, please do email me if you have any questions or connect on LinkedIn. That's totally okay to write questions in any form. Okay, one question from Ina. How would you recommend gamification to be done? Well, people love, and I can go back to that slide. People love to excel, and some just like to get a badge. And that's kind of the point of these badges here with the 4 levels. You can excel if you want to, but you can also stay at the first level. And for people that really, really want to be engaged, they have different objectives in these different levels. So you have to do maybe an introduction in the first one. And in the second level, you might need to join user testing or something of relevance for the organization. And that makes people more hungry to actually complete the tasks. I hope I answered that question for that. Do you have any recommendations regarding setting accessibility objectives throughout an organization? I mean, it depends on the organization, and it has to work with that organization. There's no point driving an accessibility program if everyone is not aboard and can commit to it. So I would say that one of the objectives would be to, okay, can we get some time, some budget to spend on accessibility training? And as setting up a champions program would actually lead to that, but you need buy-in to get this. And if you start small, it's also easier. What about if these non-conformant Black Friday examples were being mentioned as risks or failures in the accessibility statement? Real risk and accessibility do not change. What about compliance? For the moving parts, can it be acceptable to have a configuring solution to have a warning and getting these movements disabled for the user if required, or to keep them away at all for the universal design approach is a must? Well, you have to be able to stop them, the motions, and you should respect user preferences. So if you have prefers reduced motion set, it shouldn't really autoplay at all. And most people do not like the movement, so it should be turned off as default. But I mean, you cannot just write something in your accessibility statement and say this is something temporary. You could get a fine for that anyways. And Martin, you wrote something about first objective can be compliance, then second step can go beyond that. And that is very true, that start with something you can accomplish and then accelerate further on. Yeah, and the last point of your comment there, Martin. So many things are actually usability and not regulated by law, and a lot of cognitive things in accessibility is not covered by law. It's not in WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So you need to consider that as well. Alexander asks, what about making the accessibility requirements mandatory and professional failure if not done in the general employees' objectives, having also mandatory trainings and not just champions and examples? Yeah, that is really good. If you can have mandatory trainings, you should have it. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from having a champions program and the mandatory parts. And it could be something like you need to have X amount of champions in each team. That could be a mandatory requirement, as an example. How do you enforce accessibility in a white label product? How do I communicate with customers of our product that they should have accessibility in mind in their branding, for example, colors, fonts? That's more of a tricky part. I mean, the baseline should always be accessible. And I mean, people, as the random people breaking things, there's always going to be someone that can break accessibility. And you could have like easy contracts checks, maybe. If you can choose colors, you could measure one color against another one, and you could at least have some kind of warning in place if they choose something that is not good. And then you can also do some regular checks for the ones that use your product as white label and get back to them. It's a question about who would be the leading responsible. That's a hard question to answer out of that context, but I mean, the one that asks for something to be bought should also set some demands, and procurement should help driving those demands. That's a hard question to answer. Ultimately, it would be the company lead that is responsible for non-compliance. All right, maybe we should wrap this one up. Thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great holiday and get some nice Christmas dinner and presents. Thank all of you.